Good evening, I'm Eric Gray, and this is Unexplained. Did an astrophotographer and his wife see a triangular TR-3B type UFO fly over South Dakota, similar to the Phoenix Lights, on September 28, 2024? Was it military, satellites, extraterrestrial? Let's dive in. So this occurred on September 28, 2024. We have two witnesses, an astrophotographer and his wife. They were out on the backyard deck area of their home, and they saw this object fly northwest over their home. Now, this is Spearfish, South Dakota is where they were located. So it's right about here on the map. It's next to Wyoming, near the northern part of South Dakota. It's also north of the Black Hills National Forest, and also just west of the Ellsworth Air Force Base. This is an area, of course, that gets a lot of UFO traffic as well. So let's keep those couple details in mind. Now, this comes right from the National UFO Reporting Center, and it was reported the day after it happened, so the 29th, and the report is as follows. Larger than a football field sized craft flew over the sky in less than 10 seconds. I'm an astrophotographer, so I'm well versed in what a typical night sky looks like in terms of high and low Earth satellites, Starlink, Northern Lights, rocket launches, and military craft. We have a major Air Force base in Rapid City. I'm familiar with these because they often interfere with my astro shots, and I'm outside enough to notice them. The night sky between here and Wyoming is usually clear and stunning. That being said, what my wife and I both saw last night made our jaws drop. There is simply no man-made explanation for what we witnessed. My wife and I were stargazing in our backyard around 8 p.m. Mountain Time when I personally noticed something odd. An orb with a gray haze surrounding it shot across the sky in about 6 seconds. Now, he made this drawing here of the orb that he saw, this initial one with the gray haze. And it shot across the sky in about 6 seconds, very quickly. You're not going to get a picture of that. It looked incredibly strange, and I mentioned it to my wife, who missed it. I tried to convince myself, and maybe I was just seeing things. But then, as I pointed out the area I saw it in, a massive right-angle shaped craft appeared from the northwest and crossed the sky to the east in about 10 seconds. It wasn't V-shaped per se, but rather a perfect right angle. To my eyes, the craft seemed to be in the upper atmosphere or low orbit, and it had to be the size of multiple football fields. There were a few planes in the sky, and this was way higher than those, but not as high as Starlink satellites, at least from what I could tell. What made it even stranger was the clearly visible underlights, which were white and structured. Surrounding the lights was almost a grayish-white hazy aura, giving it an ethereal appearance. The whole craft, for lack of a better term, looked almost like a ghost ship. With that eerie aura, when it passed above us, you could see both the lights and the structure. Now, he also made another sketch here of what he had seen, and I like that he made these sketches, and then he also photoshopped this image to actually give you a better idea of what he had seen. It moved silently, like a stingray gliding through the sky, smooth and quick, and did not change directions. We only had about 10 seconds to observe it. So again, that's very quick. You're likely not going to get a picture of this. The shock of just seeing this would probably have you stunned. Just enough to grasp what we were looking at. Even if we had our astro gear set up, it wouldn't have been good enough shot to capture it because it moved too quickly and would have been blurry. Based on my experience, satellites can take up to 2 minutes to cross the sky, but this took only 10 seconds and had visible structure. It had to be moving at an incredible speed, way faster than any military aircraft in our area, and faster than any satellite. I would estimate it was about 3 times slower than a shooting star. My wife and I both confirmed what we saw. To avoid influencing each other's perspective, we went inside and drew what we saw without sharing until we were done. We depicted the same craft. Later we made a photoshopped image of it, which I'll attach here. And of course that's what you're seeing here. I think that's great that they didn't want to influence each other's perspective of what they saw. Or did you see this craft that looked like this? No, let's go in and let's draw what we saw. Let's make sure that we saw the same thing. People perceive things differently, and also men and women pick up on different nuances of things. My wife will pick up on somebody's shoes and I never looked at them. So I think this is a great idea. Based on my research, a typical low Earth orbit satellite travels at about 7.8 kilometers a second, approximately 17,500 miles per hour, and takes around 5 minutes, 300 seconds, to cross the sky, covering a distance of roughly 2,340 kilometers. So this guy definitely knows his stuff, being an astrophotographer. In contrast, the object I observed covered a similar distance in just 10 seconds, meaning it was moving at an incredible speed of about 234 kilometers a second, or 523,440 miles per hour. That's an insane speed. To put this into perspective, the fastest known spy plane, the Lockheed SR-71 Blackbird, which we're all familiar with, publicly has a top speed of over 2,200 miles per hour. This means the object I saw was moving at speeds approximately 238 times faster than our fastest aircraft. I think the fact that this person is an astrophotographer lends credence to the claim that this was truly unidentified. Although I have seen Starlink and other satellites in the sky, I think they too take a shorter amount of time to cross the sky than advised in this report, but it's tough to say. I've never actually done the math on how long they take to cross the sky. If you had to ask me, I would imagine that it was about a minute for most satellites that I see cross the sky, but I'm not sure. But again, 10 seconds is insanely fast. Now, Starlink, if you've ever seen, it is a straight line of dots. This having another straight line of dots at a right angle is certainly unusual and does not seem typical with Starlink at all. So I would have to, likely rule out Starlink. Certainly Starlink is amazing when you see it. It's very otherworldly when you see it crossing the sky. But I've never heard of it having a right angle of lights. So that's definitely makes this unique, and I think rules out Starlink. This does certainly remind me of the Phoenix lights, though, with that triangular shape and just being the lights, or other claims of TR-3B craft. Of course, when the Phoenix lights occurred over Arizona on March 13th, 1997, there was no Starlink at that time. The military advised it was flares, which seemed dubious at best when you look at the actual flares and what they look like, and then you look at the actual footage of the Phoenix lights. It just does not seem like that could be what it was. And also, how many people saw the Phoenix lights over such a large area? It was over the state of Arizona and Nevada. Just a massive happening. If you're like me, you're suspicious also of the military's accounts on UFOs, or as they call them now, UAPs. I refuse to use this term, as I feel it tries to take away from the long history of reported UFOs. The military also has a long history of covering up and denying such sightings. Why now would we trust them for true disclosure? This only gives them total control over the entire narrative, and this is clearly what they are going for. I think this could certainly have a link to many other reports of triangular-shaped craft, or what is known as the TR-3B. We are near an Air Force base here, the Ellsworth Air Force Base, and also the Black Hills National Forest. South Dakota is known as flyover country by the airlines for how broad it is in the center of the United States, and has a long history of UFO sightings. My goal here is to cover real people's sightings just as UFOs have always been reported, from people with nothing to gain but ridicule. Unique sightings and reports that continue the long, unexplained mystery of UFOs. If you have a story you would like me to cover, or thoughts on this report, please post it in the comments below. I have been your host, Eric Gray, signing off from the Unexplained Studio. Good night, and stay cozy, friends.